Okay, welcome to video 2. Some of you might know that I uploaded a previous video. I didn't like the presentation, so I decided to upload another. Now, not only, many of you should be able to see the significance here of a cube on the forehead. Alright, now you might not see how it relates to all the other things that I was trying to show you that it does, but it does. And just absorb this video here in remembrance of what we had already learned in the first. And then hopefully you've been watching the other videos in the playlist and you're very familiar by now. So the cube, as you can see on the forehead, the forehead, with the cube, right? The forehead, the box, the cube, the 4-dimension, 4D, it's all there. But on this forehead location, the cube is symbolizing something. It's more or less covering something, and that would be the third eye region. The third eye region. Now, how does this connect with Inky? Because we need to be very specific here. And we can do that because it is recorded within the Sumerian record, the tablets, that at the time of the flood, the so-called biblical flood, the deluge, which is very inaccurate in its biblical form, it says that he was sealed, meaning Inky, in a perfect cube. Not a perfect circle, but a perfect cube. Inky, the Nash, Lord of the flowing waters, was sealed in a perfect cube. Now, this gets a little bit more interesting because if the cube here is in semblance of covering the third eye region, we need to realize let's just take an anatomical look at the third eye, the pineal gland. There is something very curious about it. When you dissect the pineal gland, you invariably find what they describe as sand-like crystal particles within it. Think about this. Sand like crystal particles within the pineal gland, the third eye. Now instantly, if you've been following my videos, you're going to see the relationship here, as I have already described, the 3 pyramids of the Giza Plateau on the 30th parallel as the third eye region of the earth. If you were to consider it basically like the model of a human head, then at the 30th parallel, the 3 pyramids of Giza would be relative to the third eye. Now, they are also connected to sand, are they not? And then they are connected to Egypt, which would connect us back to Osiris Orion, the god of the high sand. High sand. Now, the third eye is this high sand situation, and that we see, even anatomically so, is where the real root of this comes from. So look at the cube once again now on the forehead here in relationship to the third eye. Now remember, the 4D is talking about a vessel in which we have considered it to be more or less like a prison, like a seal, or a cell. And of course, if you understand about the pyramids and what they're doing in connection with the Sphinx symbolism out front, that's exactly what's taken place. Exactly what's taken place. But I could see how Certain of their misunderstandings could equate this to their own third eye being closed away, in which it has nothing to do with theirs at all. It has everything to do with an choice of a particular descendancy, of which has now become the leading monarchies, aristocracy, rulers, that more or less has led the entire populace into a materially constrained identity reality, meaning there is no spiritual freedom, that it's all materially diluted and polluted. So, yes, the third eye region does remain closed for the great populace because many people do not accept the truth of Jesus Christ. And we're going to show you that it's the truth of Jesus Christ that opens that box and allows you to see correctly. Not with one eye, not with two eyes, but with three. Truly illuminating the reality construct for what it is and not what it isn't. So, Enki, now in the ancient record, the Sumerian tablets describe him as being sealed in a perfect cube during the time of the flood. Now we see the cube in relation to the third eye, which now can bring us back to Egypt, which would bring us back to the temple pyramids in connection to the god of the high sand. Now, if you were to experience a deluge, at least in Egypt, would you not go to the temple of the high sand? That's right. You most certainly would. But we understand that the deluge has a spiritual, metaphorical, philosophical, and material outright manifestation. If you remember the plaques that I showed some of you guys earlier, we see that even that high sand was still inundated by the flood. No doubt. But nonetheless, the third eye region represents the temple of the high sand, of which Osiris Orion is in relationship to, this god of, if you will. But being through the Nephilim descendancy, they are symbolized as having this portion opened up for them, in which we see these serpent type symbolisms begin to appear in ancient Egypt, coming out of the foreheads of the rulers and the priests. Now, think about everything here. It's this Enki which is connected to the serpent coming up the rod. We know that's the caduceus. We know that's the serpent kundalini rising, and the third eye opening is connected to this illumination or this awakening that the laborer is hoping to achieve under this possession in all actuality. So let's take some other things into connection here to show you how this is all really going to be connected back to Enki, just in simple terms. If I was to say 4D, all right, that's what we're talking about, the cube in a box, right? Talking about a cube in a box right here, right? Okay, if I was to say 4D, well, phonetically, I'm literally basically saying the same thing to you right now, 40. 4D, 40. Okay? Now, whose number is 40? Enki. Now we know why Enki's number is 40, because it's in relative relationship to what? The seal. Which we see here, by tradition, is manifesting the reality of the situation. That they are sealed. And when they are really thinking that they are seeing, the tradition themselves says that they're fully blind. But yet they are being prepared by default of them being blind to be this birth vehicle for the dissemination of this doctrine, as well as the preparation of the manifestation of this being into the material realm. So Enki's number is 40. Now he's 40 because of the seal as it relates back from Genesis. And we know that what we get from Genesis in connection to this vengeance sevenfold. Now, we most likely will take a look at the scripture in Genesis so that if you have not yet seen it yet, you'll understand. But you should be familiar with it. I mean, most likely you've been watching the channel. To be this far along and to even hope to understand what we're talking about now, you have to have been watching. There's no doubt. So, Enki being 40 comes up in relationship to this vengeance sevenfold, which is 72 times 70, then times sevenfold, which brings us back to a particular period in time at about 40,000 years ago. Now, the sealing period takes place over multiple stages between spiritual and material beings. This is why it's very hard to pinpoint it down to any exact time. But we know that the spiritual beings were pre-sealed before the repercussional material quasi-spiritual beings that were affected were sealed after them. And then this is why we have a sealing period which lasts from about, or which is taking place over about 5,000 years, from the 40,000 year marker to at about the 35,000 year marker. In between there is a stage of sealing that is taking place under different contexts of sealing, depending on what type of being is being sealed. Okay, so we have Enki being connected to the 40, which is now going to be connected to 7 world ages. Okay, and if anybody has watched my start date for the Garden of Eden is 36,288 BC. That's where you would see the rest of the information that could accompany that. So we know that since this garden time and this temptation has been taken, the repercussion was this sealing for the descendancy after some time, right? Well, I said thousands of years have taken place between one portion of sealing to the next. And then we see that the sealing is relative for about 40,000 years. Now, what gives Enki the number 40 for the seal is because of what he's trying to manipulate. He's seeking to manipulate mankind. Now, mankind's number, at least by this fifth dimensional resonance, this fifth dimensional consciousness, is 5. And of course, you get the 5 appendages of your hand. The most noticeable symbol of man, in my opinion. So, man is 5. 5 times 8 equals 40. Well, Enki's number is 40 by way of the sealing period. But we will see that Enki's number also is connected to 8 as well. Now, you'll see the significance for that in Revelation. But at this point, we'll try to keep it on track with what we're talking about. So 5 times 8 is 40, 5 being the manipulation of man, which results in the sealing period of 40, which now gives everything in biblical Old Testament terms connected to it. 40 days, 40 nights, 40 years in the desert. And of course, Moses was lifting up that serpent staff, that rod, the caduceus. All right? So that should be pretty relative right there. And we've already talked about the high sand, third eye, green like crystals, sand. We're going to talk here a little bit in an upcoming video with the connection with the leaven is. And how Ephraim is the leaven, aka the 11, because he's the leader of the lost 10 tribes. Remember the division? He was the 13th, but now he becomes the 11th. Now this is what's going to be interesting with the monatomic gold fractal, because we know that the 56% stays behind, but 44% disappears and vanishes. Very interesting here, because the 5 and the 6 together are the 11. And if we connect this back to Enki, we see that Enki himself, during the time of the flood, is sealed in a cube, which is relative to the third eye region. Now, which is unique because we're going to see a connection come back up here with this 56%. We're going to see a connection come back up here with 11. And we're going to see a connection come back up where something, as I said, does not look good for these people looking to go to this far side at all. And but as I said, as above so too below, correct? What goes around comes around. So we definitely see a divided kingdom taking place here. Some go up, some go down. I'm thinking neither of them right now are thinking that they are exactly right. And I hope that they understand. I've said to stay centered all along, but I don't think many people are getting the significance of that. So let's take a look here real quick. I'm going to come back with another video here. I want to keep this one short so that you can retain it. So when we're saying the forehead, and then we're making this connection with the four with the serpent, which I'm telling you is no accident that it's now connected to Inky. But let's look here how we have previously taken just one singular four and mirrored it. That one singular four now makes a viper. Okay? Now, in reality, we're looking at the all-seeing eye symbolism, the singular eye. But we know the illusion of the four looking in the mirror creates two eyes. Now, the paradox of this is going to be pretty unique. Okay, it creates the 44 right there. The 44 creates the serpent. Not only creates a serpent, but it creates a viper. We know that the viper, is poison, spewing poison. All right? It's at the same time going to connect back to the V for the sacred feminine. And we're going to see what's very unique when we put one of these V's inside of a circle. It's going to make the hands of time. And you're just going to see how all this connects back up. You've already really seen how it connects back up, but you might not have understood. But I've got some just other little quick drawings to show you here. But we're going to talk about double vision real quick. And I want you to see this is how the serpent gets his double vision. Okay? Which will then be the catalyst for the double vision for all of those that follow him, based upon his recipe for divinity, which is faulty, because now they see double, and as a result, they have, in a sense, divided themselves and then caused one portion of themselves to be rejected. It's themselves, not anyone else, because they're looking in the mirror. If you were to just simply take a quick little study, just try this as an example. Look at your own nose on your face. And many people would call that cross-eyed. Being cross-eyed results in double vision. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is this double vision is what is akin to now this knowledge in the garden that was divided. I told you originally the knowledge was whole, but because the serpent divides the knowledge and then accurses one portion of it, we know the accursion of the one portion of the knowledge is representative of many things, but it represents a portion of the original family as well. This is where we get the two peculiar brothers, which then is relative between the enmity of Cain and Abel, which causes one to slay the other. Nonetheless, I want you to see how this double vision and where it comes from, at least in the perspective of man, and how it plays out for those that follow the serpent. The serpent is the real inspirer, but it takes place on two different planes, the manifestation of such double vision. First, for the serpent. As you see, the serpent is more or less focused. He's also focused on his nose. He has his eyes on the prize. The serpent has one advantage over these other individuals. He knows the fullness of his goal. He knows the fullness of his plan and his agenda, and he can focus on it. But what he has given to them, they have no idea. They are going from dark to light, from cold to hot, from good to evil, from up to down. In other words, he has severely confused them. So they have a different manifestation of double that's going to play out within the mirror, which you have done by that test by simply looking at your own nose. That's almost seeing yourself as God, at least when you look to your own nose as the answer. Really an essence of what you know. And then this know turns into the nose. Have you ever heard the biblical expression, do not lean on your own understanding? Well, we know that to lean on your own understanding, that's like a crutch or a cane, is it not? Now, this is where the descendancy of Cain is now leaning, crutching upon their own understanding. So the serpent here has a goal. We see what the goal is. The goal is the seal. It represents the X. It now represents the singular cell. As we know, the singular cell that he is after in semblance of X is double. It's the sacred feminine. Bam, double vision. Double X chromosome is the symbol for the sacred feminine. This becomes the goal. This is what makes now they see themselves as divine. The sacred feminine has a different manifestation as it plays out in the ego of the prideful that follow after it. Now they see themselves as divine. By seeing themselves as divine is like mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? In other words, those of the daughters of fair. But we see it's the male descendants of the daughters of fair that feel that they're the fairest of them all. This becomes that pride and representation of that double vision, which now causes them to see everything as double. Everything as double, just like the knowledge that was offered to them. But if they were looking in a mirror, don't you realize what they are really seeing as double is themselves? Those that behold need not a physician. Think about the singular I symbolism that they hide behind. We know that the left eye is seeming to represent the right hemisphere of the brain. But I said that they are all now gathered in the grouping of the darkened right eye, which is the left hemisphere of the brain, which now, in essence, has both hemispheres of the brain astrally projected to the dark side. Now they have the material double, in which this born again doesn't equate itself into a spiritual birth. It re-equates itself into a bastardized material birth, causing them to become beasts rather than the pinnacle of the beast in which they evolved. So the serpent's double vision results in the obsession with the sacred feminine to become the birth vehicle to produce the genetic heritage and stock that would willingly give up their seal so that he could one day enter into, once this club had done this great labor, this occult science to prepare the vessel for him. And this is why I give the title of the series Fallacy Factory. Because in the book of Hosea, it describes this calf of Samaria. It says, the workman hath made him. Everybody should understand that with CERN, right? But this workman, in essence, to the factory, well, there's your factory right there. You know, the 4D cube, in essence, this is all a material manifestation of a spiritual bastardization. I'll be back.